Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Alfina Damayanti. I'm in Department Nursing at Politeknik Kesehatan Tasikmalaya. Here, I will presentation my English assignment. And this is what my research has been looking at. This journal title is Anxiety and Quality of Life in Patients with Myocardial Infarction. The author is Bimalapanti and Charwan Kritracha. Myocardial infarction is one of cardiovascular life-threatening disease. The diagnosis of myocardial infarction affects both physical and psychosocial aspects of patient's life. Increased myocardial infarction that interferes with daily life resulting in damage to lifestyle after myocardial infarction, thereby reducing overall quality of life for the long term. This can interfere with their daily activities starting from work. Doing physical activities such as hobbies, sexual activity, and whatever they do will feel less than optimal, unlike the time before they were diagnosed. As a result, they feel their quality of life is reduced both in the short and long term. Myocardial infarction patients must also regulate their lifestyle, which aims to prevent acute and chronic complications, especially coupled with symptoms of anxiety, which is also one of the determinants of the quality of life of patients with myocardial infarction. Therefore, the research on the impact of anxiety on patients' quality of life is quite important because it aims to describe current knowledge about the association of anxiety with various aspects of the quality of life of patients with myocardial infarction. Published literatures were searched using individual or combination of keywords: anxiety, quality of life, and myocardial infarction in following database: PubMed, ProQuest, and Google Scholar. Questionnaire filling is related to heart health problems and anxiety levels that can be categorized into two main groups, namely: 1. Generic questionnaires measure the quality of life in general terms, regardless of the presence of any disease. Examples of generic action are health profiles, disease impact profiles, and short forms. And 2. Disease-specific questionnaire measure the consequences of a particular disease for quality of life. Examples of disease-specific measure are quality of life after myocardial infarction questionnaire, the serial angina questionnaire, the heart version of Quality of Life Index, Angina Pectoris Quality of Life Questionnaire. According to available evidence, quality of life after myocardial infarction questionnaire is preferred over other disease-specific questionnaire. Here is the data that shows the result. First, 30% of patient myocardial infarction reported no anxiety, 23% indicate mild level of anxiety, 25% were on moderate level anxiety, and last, 22% were on high level of anxiety. And here the other result. 1. Anxiety levels are higher in the early phase. It is natural for the initial phase to have high level of anxiety because there has been no treatment from doctor and patient also don't know how to handle it. 2. Women are rated as more anxious than men. Women are known to be more sensitive. When something doesn't feel right, they will feel panic and anxious, while men can usually be calmer. 3. Patient living alone. Patients who live alone usually don't have friends to share their stories with at home. Therefore, no one can handle them. And the last is patient with low socioeconomic status. Low socioeconomic factors are one of the things that cause anxiety symptoms not to be handled by experts because there are still many more pressing needs. This review shows that anxiety symptoms in an individual with myocardial infarction associated with a worse quality of life. The majority of studies show that anxiety affects the physical, social, spiritual aspect of life in patients with myocardial infarction. All studies in this review shows a negative association of anxiety symptoms with at least one aspect of quality of life in patients with myocardial infarction. The consistency of these findings strongly support the hypothesis that individuals that have both anxiety symptoms and myocardial infarction have a worse quality of life. Therefore, the available studies suggest that anxiety indeed precedes and decreases quality of life. The presence of anxiety symptoms also affect self-care which become worse. Emotional management of patients with myocardial infarction. Therefore, the level of anxiety also has major consequences in the lives of patients with myocardial infarction. Patients also need to know their level of anxiety so that they can understand stressful situations and solve problems to protect themselves. And the last is conclusion. The level of anxiety that patients have affect the quality of life of patients with symptoms of myocardial infarction. On average, patients who experience this anxiety cannot control their lives properly because they are affected by anxiety. And and that's all my presentation. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.